Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to bring you guys another book recommendations video. I had so much fun filming my Beauty and the Beast retellings recommendations video, so I decided to come back with recommendations for one of my favorite romance tropes ever. And that is a grumpy heroine matched up with a sunshiny hero. I have quite a few recommendations here. I may have forgotten a couple that I've read in the past. It is what it is. I'll definitely make a part 2 of this because, like I said, I love this trope so much. I love this trope even more than like a grumpy hero and a sunshiny heroine. I mean, that trope has rights as well, but I love a grumpy heroine because I relate to them the most. I mean, on camera, I seem like a very bubbly and perky person, I think, but in real life, I'm a lot more subdued, and people have told me in the past that I come off as very intimidating. So I do relate a lot to grumpy heroines, and just the idea of a sunshiny hero is everything to me. I just love like gentle, vulnerable, happy heroes. And I also just love cinnamon roll heroes. Like a lot of sunshiny heroes are also cinnamon roll heroes. So yeah, as you can tell, I love this trope so much. I'm already smiling and I haven't even talked about any of the books. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump on into it. So the first book I have to talk about is the book that inspired me to finally film this video, and that is Sweet Talk by Cara Stone. Oh my goodness, I just read this a couple days ago. This is amazing. It is an Audible original audiobook, but it was also published as an ebook pretty recently. But if you do have an Audible account, this is part of the Plus catalog, and I cannot recommend this highly enough. This is a wrong number romance. We have Elliot, our hero. He is dyslexic. He also has other learning disabilities. He's also dealing with mental trauma because of something that happened in his own apartment. So he now has insomnia. And because he's dyslexic, he tends to mix up letters when he's typing in somebody's name into like his contacts list. So he added this woman's number. He just put her under like JD or something like that. And he ended up texting JD instead of his sister. And so they end up striking a conversation. Turns out that JD is actually the super for his apartment building. And she's been crushing on him for a long time, but she has a very specific reason for not wanting to tell him who she really is. And so things just go on from there. Most of this romance is the two of them talking on the phone together, and they watch like the Great British Bake Off together. And it's just like so sweet, so swoony. I adore Elliot so much. Like, he is one of those heroes that I truly wish he was a real man and that he was in my life. Oh my goodness. He's also the author of a webcomic, and I loved Jessie because she is described as being intimidating. She's more of like kind of a grumpy heroine, but she's not all that grumpy. She's dealing with a lot. So and she also like has like all these tattoos, and she wears like motorcycle jackets. She rides a motorcycle, so she comes off as very intimidating and the opposite of Elliot in so many ways. And like, oh my god, I had butterflies in my stomach like the entire time I was listening to this audiobook. So freaking amazing. Next up we have The Lineup by Megan Quinn. This is the first and only book that I have read by this author at this point, but I need to read more because she has such a unique and quirky sense of humor to her writing and to her stories. But this is book 3 in her Brentwood Boys series. You definitely do not need to read these in order. This is a baseball romance series, and we have our hero Jason. And Jason, he's kind of an over-the-top hero. He is a lot, but in the best way possible. He is so quirky, so funny, so outgoing. Yeah, oh my god, like I love him so much. He's a very unique hero in my mind. He just has a very unique vibe to him. And then we have Dottie, our heroine, who is kind of grumpy. She ends up accidentally donating a bunch of money to Jason's charity. And because she donated so much money, she won a date with Jason. And so things just go on from there. And while I loved both main characters, Jason is the star of this because, like I said, he's very sunshiny, very outgoing. So he comes off as a very like beta hero, but in the bedroom, he turns into an alpha, and the dirty talk is just next level. Like he's totally a cinnadom, like a cinnamon roll and a dominant hero, all all into one. So yeah, this was just fantastic. I definitely need to read more from this author. Next up we have Bottle Rocket by Erin McClellan. This was one of my favorite novellas that I read last year in 2021. I did feature it in my top 10 romance novellas of 2021 video. I'll link that up in the cards if you are interested. But this one is a second chance romance between Leo and Rosie. Leo is a very like free-spirited, once again a sunshiny hero. And then we have Rosie, who is just very guarded, and when they were teenagers they fell in love very quickly, but because Rosie was going off to college and Leo was going off to LA, I think, to just kind of live his dreams, do his own thing, they amicably broke up, but it did break each other's hearts. And so now it's like 13 years later, Rosie married somebody else. She's now divorced, so she's very jaded about love and things like that. Leo just kind of randomly comes back into her life because he comes back to their hometown. And so they quickly get back together. This is steamy, steamy. Also, Leo is a submissive hero and Rosie is a dominant heroine. I adore that trope so much, and it's done so well in this novella. What's really fun is that Rosie ends up making this list of things that she wants to do with Leo, and Leo happily obliges. This also features a very unconventional happily ever after. Also, Erin McClellan is the queen of using toys in her steamy scenes, and it's fantastic. This made me cry multiple times because of the second chance romance, and like you can just feel from page one that these two people love each other and will always love each other. Next up we have Always Only You by Chloe Leese. This is so fantastic. I mean, obviously all of these books are fantastic. I would not be recommending them otherwise. But this is book 2 in her Bergman Brothers series. This is a series that centers around hockey, I would say. And this one is about Frankie, our heroine. She is, I believe, the social media coordinator for this hockey team, and Ren, our hero, is a player for this hockey team. And there is some great pining in this. From what I can remember, Ren has had a crush on Frankie for a long time. He just thinks that she's such a badass. And I think it's mutual. I think that she's always felt some type of way about him. And she literally describes him as like the personification of sunshine. And what's also amazing about this is that it turns out that Ren is a virgin hero, another trope that I just love. There's some great representation in this as well, because Frankie has autism and she also has rheumatoid arthritis, which that is a representation that you really do not see often, if at all, in romance novels. And from what I understand from reading Own Voices reviews, that representation was very well done. And of course, Ren is just a swoony cinnamon roll hero. This is just, it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's my second favorite of the series. Or is it my favorite of the series? I don't know, because I adored book 3, which is Ever After Always, because that's a marriage and trouble romance. But this one is a very close second favorite. It's really a great contemporary romance. Next up we have one of my favorite, if not my like all-time favorite Christmas romance at this point. This is Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. The audiobook actually recently came out for this book, so I think I'm gonna reread it via audio at some point, even though it's no longer Christmas. I mean, Christmas romances are always appropriate. It doesn't matter what time of year it is, but this is about our heroine, Stella. Stella is dealing with a lot because she had been in prison for the past like 4 years, and now she has come out from prison very recently. She's now living in like her uncle's apartment in New York. She doesn't know what to do with her life. She doesn't know what she can do with her life because obviously once you're in the prison system, it's very challenging to find a job and to find housing and all of those things. But she randomly comes across this window display for this department store called Vivant. It's a very weird window display involving like penguins wrapping presents, but it totally does not match the vibe of Vivant, which is this very luxury department store. So then we have Aiden, our hero. He is the manager of the department store, and he sees Stella just staring at this window display, and so he decides to come up to her and strike up a conversation. She lays into this display and how weird it is, and so through their conversation Aiden realizes that Stella really knows what she's talking about, and so she ends up applying for a job at the department store. And Aiden, oh my god, he is like one of the funniest heroes that I've ever read about. He's so quirky, so hilarious. He loves to tell like random stories about his family members. Apparently he's based off of Ted Lasso. I've not watched that show. But people who have watched that show have said that it's a very accurate depiction of Aiden. And he's also one of those like Cinedom heroes. Like, he's totally sweet and swoony and funny and quirky, but in the bedroom he turns total dominant, and the dirty talking is just next level. I mean, we know Tessa Bailey serves the dirty talk. Next up, we have 10 Things I Hate About the Duke by Loretta Chase. This is the only historical romance. Yeah. It's the only historical romance on this list. Like, I need to find more historical romances with a grumpy heroine and a sunshiny hero. So if you guys have recommendations, definitely let me know. And who knows, I may have read some more and they're just not popping into my head. But this one, as you can kind of tell, it's a retelling of Taming of the Shrew. We have Cassandra, our heroine, and we have Lucian, our hero. Lucian is kind of a hot mess. Like, he's one of the 3 disgraces, these 3 dukes that are best friends, and they just continuously play pranks on each other, and they love to scandalize London society. And then we have Cassandra, who she's very opinionated, and people in London society kind of despise her for that. And Cassandra's father comes up with this rule that her younger sister won't be able to get married until Cassandra does. And so, yeah, Cassandra and Lucian have this very disastrous meet cute. This is also a low heat romance. There's only one sex scene towards the very end, and it isn't very explicit. So if you are someone that is looking for lower heat romances, I would recommend this one. The banter between these 2 characters is everything. I love how this book also kind of subverts a lot of historical romance tropes that we've all gotten used to, and that Cassandra, our heroine, is the one that finds it like an inconvenience to be falling for Lucian. And even though Lucian is like the personification of sunshine, he also gets very protective and possessive of Cassandra. It's just, so good. Cannot recommend this one highly enough. Next up, I have Teach Me by Olivia Dade. This is book 1 in her There's Something About Marysburg series. I need to read the other 2 books in this series ASAP because I adored this one so much. This is the book that solidified for me that Olivia Dade is quickly becoming one of my new favorite romance authors. This one is about Martin and Rose. They are both teachers at this private school, I think. Martin is a new teacher there, and Rose is not the nicest to Martin at first because Martin ends up taking over some classes from Rose, and Rose feels very offended about that. And so while she knows it's not Martin's fault that he's taking these classes, clearly it's her boss's fault, she still can't help but be kind of icy towards him. And he is just so sweet and so patient with her. And she does realize pretty early on in the book that the way that she's treating him isn't right. This one's just so sweet, gave me butterflies. I also remember that Martin, our hero, is a single father. We love that trope as well. Yeah, this one's just really great. Next up, we have The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Dannon. This is a book that I featured in my top 10 contemporary romances of 2021, so I'll link that up in the cards above as well. This one, I will say, Naomi, our heroine, isn't like very grumpy. I would just say she's more guarded and jaded and hardened because of life. And if you don't know anything about this book, Naomi is now a retired porn star, and now she co-runs this sex and like pleasure education like podcast / company with a couple of her best friends who were actually the hero and heroine from book 1 of this series. And then we have Ethan, our hero, who is a rabbi. He hires Naomi to come into his synagogue and give a seminar about modern dating and intimacy to try to bring in younger people into his congregation. Things go on from there. Ethan is such a sweet hero, love him so much. Also, I adore that Naomi is like a taller heroine and Ethan is slightly shorter than her. We never see that in romance novels. Like, I feel like this is the only romance novel that I've ever read where that's like explicitly stated that the hero is shorter than the heroine, and I'm just obsessed with that. This is also just so sex positive, but at the same time, it's not as steamy as you would expect, but the steamy scenes that are in this book are fantastic, and I just loved seeing Ethan like chip away at Naomi's emotional walls, and Ethan goes through a lot in this book as well. Yeah. What else can I say? Clearly I loved it because it was one of my favorite contemporary romances that I read in 2021. Next up, I will just mention this sapphic romance. This is Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellfleur. Yes, I read this at the very beginning of 2021. I completely forgot that this was a Grumpy Sunshine romance, but it totally is. It's about our heroines, Darcy and Elle. This is just a really sweet and sexy sapphic romance that takes place around New Year's Eve. So if you're into that vibe, I definitely would recommend this. Next up, we have Yes and I Love You by Ronnie Lauren. This book totally took me by surprise because I'm just going to be upfront with you guys. I totally judged this book by the cover. It's kind of a weird cover in my opinion. I'm not all that certain that the cover matches the story that's inside. But this is about Holland, our heroine. She has Tourette's syndrome and she's definitely more guarded. I wouldn't call her grumpy necessarily, but like I said, she's definitely more guarded because of her Tourette's and having to deal with the way that people treat her because of that and all those things. And then we have Jasper, who is very outgoing. He has ADHD. He's also an improv actor. And they meet because they both end up working at like this workspace. And this also takes place in New Orleans, which is so fun. I always love when romance novels or when any kinds of books take place in New Orleans because that's where I'm from and that's where I live. And so I just love how Jasper coaxes Holland out of her shell. And this book is also surprisingly hot. The steamy scenes in this were like on point. So moving on to our very last recommendation, we have Undercover Bromance by Lyssa Kay Adams. I adore this series with my whole heart. And this one is about Liv, who is a heroine that a lot of people that I follow don't really like. But I personally related to her a lot. So I don't know what that says about me. I really enjoyed her character a lot. But yeah, we have Liv. This story starts because she's working as a pastry chef at this restaurant, but the owner of the restaurant hits on a hostess that also works at the restaurant. Liv overhears that entire exchange, and so the owner fires her, and now she is out to get justice against this man who has been sexually harassing all of these women that work for him. And then we have Mac. I adore Mac. He is so outgoing. I wouldn't say that he's like the epitome of sunshine, but he's so like the opposite of Liv. He's just very outgoing, very quirky. He is the one that I believe formed the Bromance Book Club, and he has been reading romance novels since he was like a teenager, and I just adore him. And so they come together because Mac decides to help Liv in her quest for justice against her old boss. This romance really worked for me, but I do have the unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people that gave this book like 3 stars. So just be aware of that, and I would recommend reading book 1 before jumping into this one because I think it just gives really good context about the series and the overall premise and all of that. So that is going to be it for all of my grumpy heroine and sunshiny hero book recommendations. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I truly adore this trope. If you guys have more recommendations for this trope, please leave them down in the comments below so that I and other people that watch this video can get even more recommendations. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do. And with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!